excellent permanent residents. They make incredible contributions, and they have support networks and language training and job prospects on graduation. But there are some bad actors who abuse the system. And I believe that we need to, frankly, work with the provinces and territories who have some stake in this too, so we can all do a better job of cracking down on the bad actors. The example you gave is just one, but there's no shortage of stories of students who are left without supports, who come here with a belief they'll be able to study and potentially work, who've been sold a false bill of goods by people who are making significant amounts of money with a cottage industry on the other side of the world to promote their participation in Canada's international student program. We need to be cracking down on those bad actors, the institutions that don't provide supports for their students, and of course, people who abuse the system, because fraudulent behavior in Canada's immigration system won't be tolerated. So I can't address the specifics of issues that are under investigation, you can appreciate, but my view is any effort to expand the program needs to be matched with an effort to further crack down on the bad actors who abuse the system.
Merci. Prochaine question, opérateur.
Thank you. Merci. The next question is from Ryan Tumulty from National Post. Please go ahead. Your line is open.
Yeah, good morning, Minister. A couple of months ago, a memo in your department suggested that because of the backlog, the number of federally high-skilled workers that you had planned to accept this year would have to be cut potentially by as much as half. I'm wondering if you think these new changes will avoid a big reduction in your immigration plan, which I understand is coming to Parliament this month.
Thank you very much for that question. And yeah, I do intend to be tabling the immigration levels plan in February. Now that Parliament has resumed. So the issue that you're focused on is an important one. It involves federal skilled workers who are seeking to come to Canada. And the starting point in this conversation for me is whether our economic programs are meeting the demands of the Canadian economy. And I can assure you that our economic programs are doing more for the Canadian economy than they ever had, as we continue to welcome record numbers of permanent residents and continue to have demand-driven programs for those who need workers here on a temporary basis. There are certain challenges that came as a result of our pivot to welcoming more and more people who were already in Canada out of necessity during the pandemic, which I reiterate was the right thing to do at the time to save our immigration system and maximize the potential economic return from an ambitious immigration plan. That has created a situation where we still have significant numbers in our inventory through existing streams aside from the federal skilled worker stream. This puts us in a position where we do have more work to do to clear some of the existing inventory before we can resume draws on the federal skilled workers program. Now, I don't have a date for you specifically today because we need to see how things flow in the months ahead before we can revisit bringing more federal skilled workers in without creating a situation where we know they will be simply waiting in the queue longer than they were previously. But these measures that we've announced today will reduce processing times for people who are in the queue, and combined with the levels plan that we table, which will welcome more and more economic migrants into Canada, is the kind of thing that gives me hope that we'll be able to return to welcoming people through the federal skilled worker program at some point. But we do have some work to do before we get there. And when we have information with specifics on timelines and the date, I'll be sure that we reach out and make that very public so that people who are expecting to come to Canada can plan accordingly.
Yeah, just as a follow-up, I'm wondering if you're concerned because of this backlog. Not only do people have to wait a long time, but when there are draws, people have to have an incredibly high score to be accepted into Canada. I'm wondering if you're worried about the impact that's having on our overall immigration system, and if you're worried about, high-skilled immigrants choosing somewhere other than Canada because we have such a backlog.
So there's a couple of things that I'd respond with. When it comes to attracting skilled workers from around the world to come live and work in Canada, we are winning the global competition for talent. We are the best in the world, and I underscore this point. We are the best in the world at welcoming large numbers of economic migrants to Canada to help drive our economic growth. That said, you've honed in on something really important. a lot of the world, as a result of global consequences of COVID-19, are dealing with the same labor shortages that we are. Those who wake up to the fact that immigration provides an opportunity for them to maximize their economic potential are going to bounce out of the pandemic recession more quickly than others. Canada is very well positioned because we have a series of policies, some of which don't have as significant delays as others, including the global talent stream, including the provincial nominee programs, including the various economic pilots and the recent Atlantic immigration program that's been made permanent in my region of Canada. So across the system, to answer your question, I think Canada maintains and will maintain the top position in the world when it comes to attracting talent from around the world to fill gaps in our labor force. But we need to continue to do more because from my perspective, it's not enough just to be the best in the world because we started out as the best in the world. We need to be the best that we can be. So we need to continue to grow our immigration levels. We need to continue to invest in the resources to have reduced processing time so we can send a clear message to the world that we want workers to come to Canada to create jobs in our community and put more Canadians to work. So it's a difficult and nuanced situation to manage. But when I look across the system, there's no question in my mind that Canada remains the best in the world when it comes to welcoming large numbers of newcomers for economic purposes to fill jobs in our communities.
Operator, next question.
Thank you. Merci. The next question is from Shelby Devano from CIC News. Please go ahead. Your line is open.
Well, Minister Fraser, thank you for taking our questions today. So I would like to ask you about the November 24 memo. It's quite old by now, and I'm just wondering, is it true that express entry admissions will be cut in half under the new levels plan? And if so, how is that congruent with IRCC's communications in that immigration is key to economic recovery?
So look, let me build upon the answer I gave to the related question that came in just a moment ago. And you'll forgive me if I don't announce the levels plan before it's tabled in Parliament. I believe I have a responsibility to other parliamentarians to share that information with them simultaneously when I do table it in Parliament. The number one question when it comes to this issue for me is across the system, are we bringing the people to Canada for economic purposes in a way that will meet the needs of the Canadian economy? And the answer to that question in my mind is yes. We should continue to do more by focusing on both our permanent pathways to permanent residency as well as our temporary programs, which allow people to fill short-term gaps. So to answer your question, I don't think that there are contrary messages when we're seeking to bring in more economic migrants, when one stream has been impacted by a phenomenon that was created by the pandemic. That said, we do need to do some work to clear the inventory of people who are here through economic streams now that are qualified to come through existing streams into Canada, so we can resume the activity that we're used to through the Federal Skilled Workers Program. The pause rather on federal skilled workers, I reassure you, is temporary, and we will be trying to process the existing inventory of applicants who are ready to come to Canada through other streams, so we can resume it as quickly as possible. It will take us some time, but in terms of your specific question about levels details, you'll have to wait a few weeks until we table the plan in Parliament.
Thank you. And as a follow-up, so according to that memo again, it suggests that for the first half of the year, Canada won't be holding draws for federal skilled worker program candidates or Canadian experience class candidates. So that means potentially July. And we know that there is tens of thousands of Canadian experience class immigrants in the in the express entry pool. We know that about 90% of them are in Canada. So what measures are you going to put in place for these candidates who would normally be able to extend their work permit if they were to receive an ITA? What measure are you going to put in place for these candidates who may have to leave Canada once their temporary permit is expired?
So what we're looking at options right now to figure out how to keep people here who are already working in jobs that businesses are relying on. But I need to come back to one of the points I made in response to your initial question. We know that there is a labor shortage in Canada. We intend to use immigration to help address the labor shortage in Canada. But we need to remind Canadians who are seeking to come to Canada or businesses that are looking for employees, there is no shortage of economic migrants that are in the process right now to come to Canada. Some in the across a variety of different economic streams. The federal skilled worker stream is a really excellent tool to bring people who have serious talents to Canada. We are looking at dealing with some of the folks who are in Canada now, but we haven't come up with the perfect solution quite yet. We also will be continuing to process people who are in the inventory in other economic streams. So you'll forgive me if I won't agree that there's one specific stream that will provide the only opportunity for businesses to secure access to workers. We have to look across all of our lines of business to make sure that we're maximizing the potential to get people here more quickly, and we'll continue to look for ways to target those sectors who've got the most acute labor needs to make sure that our immigration system is meeting the needs of the Canadian economy so we can bust out of the COVID-19 pandemic and get on with the economic recovery as quickly and as forcefully as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Merci. The next question is from Rafi Bujkanian from CBC News. Please go ahead. Your line is open.
Thanks. Good morning, Minister Fraser. Your move to have people involved in the family reunification process have the ability to go online and directly obtain information updates. That seems to address the criticism of transparency, but that criticism exists in other streams as well. We've talked to, permanent residents, we've talked to refugees, we've talked to student applicants who say that they're just unable to obtain timely updates. Sometimes they have to lodge access to information requests to find out about their own cases and where they're at. So is there any move to allow them to obtain updates directly online as well?
Thanks so much for this important question. And look, the short-term answer is yes, but we need to do more work before we have a system that's ready for them. The family reunification case tracker that I mentioned is going to be launched next month, which begins tomorrow, by the way. The month, of course, not the system. So this is a very short period of time before we roll out the first case tracker, and we start it with family reunification. My vision for Canada's immigration system is that we will pivot to the extent possible to a digital system on every line of business. It is more efficient. It is more timely. There's cost savings to the government, and it, most importantly, can improve the client experience and still meet the needs of our communities and our economy. This is really essential. If we want to pivot to a modern system, we have to use the technology that a modern system can provide. One of the additional benefits to this particular change is when I talk to my colleagues across different parties,